Listen to me, you grubby little commoner. You'll work my fields for pittance and you'll be thankful. Otherwise, I'll throw you off my land and give your job to... What's that one called?
Thank you for clicking on this video. It is always greatly appreciated. Today I continue my 40-hour gameplay review series, and there is the proof of my game hours. And today, for your absolute viewing pleasure, we will look at Medieval Dynasty. Before I get into it, you will see I've split the YouTube bar into sections, and these are the chapters to this video. Obviously jump around to any bit you want to look at. If at any time you think, oh, I kind of like this, then stray your mouse or finger down to the sub and like button. It is always most welcome. The chapters I've split this video into are Introduction, which strangely enough is what I'm doing right now for you, and then we will talk about what the devs have said of the game and its current state, and I'll touch on the Steam reviews. The basics of the game. In this I'll talk for a short while about what is the game about, what are the rough objectives, then how my game played out after about 40 hours in. Then we will jump into the guts of this review and discuss the good points of the game, and then to keep it all nicely balanced, of course, the bad points, and I'll finish up with my final thoughts and maybe even a desperate plea to get you to subscribe at the end. So let me start by saying, and it is important, I make an absolute point with these reviews of jumping in and watching zero guides or other videos on the game. The game must speak for itself. When I say a game speaks for itself, some games speak pretty clearly about themselves and can be almost rather boastful, and others, well, it can just be a gentle whisper in your ear. And for me, this game was definitely the more whispery type. But I get ahead of myself. Let's talk about what the Steam store page says. And it says this about Medieval Dynasty. Hunt, survive, build and lead in the harsh Middle Ages. Create your own medieval dynasty and ensure its long-lasting prosperity, or die trying. The developers/publishers have said that this game combines several genres. Survival, hunt, farm and cultivate the land. Simulation, create tools, construct houses, stables and other buildings. Role-playing, develop your character, interact with NPCs, take care of your family. Strategy, found and expand a village, manage the inhabitants, collect resources, produce goods and other things. Now, those are some pretty big calls right there. Medieval Dynasty was released in September of 2021 and has very positive Steam reviews, so that's a good start. The standard game costs about US $30, but there are 3 upgraded choices on the store page where you can pay from $33 up to US $50. No surprises to start with, but this game is all set back in medieval times when things were maybe just a little rough and basic. You start off as a young chap who has fled war in a distant land and gone to an idyllic valley to start a new life. And you walk in to the local village and are told, hey, you can build anywhere, just go set up a place, take your pick out there. So you wander off and you build a house and slowly build up a settlement, all while doing mini quests for various persons and building up dynasty points for doing so. You can think of these as like fame points. You may even romance a lady and get her to move in with you. And trust me, there are really slim pickings in these parts, so for her to say no to you, you've got to be doing something really badly wrong. You will keep slaving away every day throughout the different seasons, building new buildings, crafting various items, scratching a living, learning new skills and unlocking new technology. And if things go well for you, other people will admire your new batch of hovels. Think it is a settlement and come join it, because hell, it has got to be better than whatever long drop shithole they've come from, let's face it. And of course, being the boss, you can set them to work like diligent little slaves and manage their activities, or of course, you may not achieve this and end up with some medieval empty ghost town. In these parts, not much is going to happen quickly. The seasons pass pretty sharpish, but time sort of goes slowly in the valley. Things do not happen quickly. In your early game, you're going to spend a lot of time wandering the map, chopping down trees, hunting animals, even chopping those up. But as your settlement grows and you establish a working, viable farm, you can leave those bountiful, joyful animals in peace a little bit more and become a bit more of a homebody, a farmer. So how did my game pan out? Keep in mind again that I watched no YouTube video tutorials before I hit the play button, and well, because of that, my game was a shambles. So let me condense a 40-hour plus, because I actually spent a lot longer in the game, down to just a minute or so. I wandered into the valley as you expected to do, and then started to set up my own settlement. And after a day or two of gameplay, I realized I had set it up in totally the wrong area because I didn't know what I was doing, and stripped the whole thing down and rebuilt it in what I considered to be a better location. That took a lot of time. I then realized that I had actually started to lose dynasty points and nobody was interested in joining me, and I didn't know any fundamental basics of how to get people to join my settlement. I ended up wandering backwards and forwards across the map relentlessly from one side to the other, trying to build my dynasty points back up. That took a god-awful long time, to the point when I finally managed to get people to join me. And that was pretty much my 40-hour plus experience. It was a shambles, but that's down to me being a stupid bastard and not really figuring it all out. Other people might well do better than me, but that's the experience that I had. And if you watch this tiny bit, do not take what I've just said as saying the game is bad. I just made a bit of a shambles of the whole thing. But we'll talk a bit more about this in the good and bad points of the game, which is coming up very shortly. My PC runs a RTX 370 and I have the game set on its top maximum settings, and the whole thing is pretty smooth with no frame rate issues or anything like that. The game looks absolutely stunning, and the use of the Unreal Engine has really paid dividends here. The lighting, the shadows, reflections, the general look of the landscape and close-up textures really is top level stuff. But it really shines when you get into the half light or evening or under a bright moon. It is a beautiful, beautiful game. The game focuses on a feel of living in this uninhabited valley, with lush forests being the primary feature. These almost feel heavy with atmosphere, with thick ground foliage and equally thick canopies of trees. When the terrain does open out, it has a good feel with nice rocky terrain and hills, and the blending and movement between these two types of terrain is seamless. The ambient sounds are solid and well done, and particularly good in the forests. However, I did note the lack of insect life in the game. That would really elevate the ambience. The seasons in the game, which are super important, have very distinct feels and distinct impacts on the game. They don't last long in-game, just a few days, but you will always be keenly aware of them, in particular as you will eventually become a farmer. Knowledge of when to plant, when to harvest, what crops to plant at what time is super important. And once you get the hang of it, it will dramatically move the game from a struggle stage to a prosperous stage. With this in mind, the main season that you keep an eye out for is, of course, winter. As without good clothes, you will need to constantly carry a torch to keep warm, and will need to ensure you're adequately supplied for the dark, cold days. The seasons in the game, the graphics showing their differences, is really well done. I liked how the farming was done. The simple setup, field preparation and eventual planting of the seeds. It required your attention, but not overly so, and once down, could be left to its own devices, or you could use your settlers to assist you here. The farming took a while to get going, to get all the correct resources to make it prosperous, But this felt right. It wasn't too easy or too hard. The crops looked good, helped you tons, and it worked quite well. I also really liked the building. Once you unlocked the correct skill level, you could unlock more buildings. And you build these with a simple blueprint style, a small cost to get it going, but to complete it, well, you have to do it in various sections, and these sections would require certain resources to be further built into them, like logs or sticks or gathered stones. I quite like this, as buildings took a while. You couldn't just slap them down, you needed to slowly build them up. Some of them could take a day or two, but this felt right, as the game is anything but fast paced. But on a downside here, the buildings are pretty stale. They are what they are, you can't really modify them or add any personality to them, so there is no real enticement to do anything with them apart from use them for whatever specialist role they play. Now there are for the most part just passive or neutral animals in the game. For example, boars are neutral, they warn you to move away, and if you don't, they will attack, the same as wolves or bear. So apart from the odd fright as a deer would be startled and run off, the animals are not too much of a challenge, but they do add a nice element to the game. There's a nice variety, but there definitely should be more, and the AI is adequate. If you wound a deer, it will run fast and hard away from you. Wound a fox, it may attack then run away. It all looks nice, and particularly the rabbits are pretty cute. Yeah, overall, I sort of quite liked wildlife. Now, truthfully, what I call bad parts here are not really that bad, just a little bit weak. In the early stages, how you improve your skills and technology is a little bit confused. The most obvious example was to get better at farming, you need to farm, but I didn't have anything to farm with. So to increase my skill level, I'll just make a plot, which gave you a small farming XP gain, then destroy it, then repeat and rinse, gaining small XP bonuses by essentially doing nothing, until finally I could get to the level that I could farm. It was all a bit stupid. I felt that the skill progression system is a bit weak and a little bit vague. Now there is a main story running through Medieval that, without saying too much, is about discovering the stories of a group of people who worked with your uncle. Alongside this, there is a significant number of side stories. And when I say stories, these are in fact the quests that you need to do to earn fame points and gain a number of other different rewards. A compelling and well-told story in a game like this can be vital. But for me, this story was just a little bit ho-hum. I got bored of the main story and the side quests. Some were good, but a lot seemed, well, just trivial. It was not helped that all the interactions with NPCs are just for the most part text-based. But perhaps the most frustrating part for me was the fact that the quests took great pleasure in requiring you to trek from one side of the map to the other just to make sure that they couldn't be done quickly. The movement between one side to the other side, back to the other side, was just simply tedious. If I hadn't needed the fame points, for the most part I would not have bothered with them after a short stint of playing. The map is beautiful, but it is just too small, and after a while you feel like you are trapped, that there is nothing over the horizon. And it all is a bit similar. Although the biomes are well done, they are all a bit similar. And when a game starts to get like that, I really notice it. And after about 20 hours or so of play, in regards to the map, you'll be wishing for more. The sameness is not helped by two things. That the villages that you go to all kind of look the same. There's nothing very distinct about any of them. And you'll never see any other travellers on the roads. The villagers never leave their villages, and you will spend hours traversing backwards and forth between those villages, and the only thing you will interact with is the occasional animal and sometimes some bandits. But they are damn rare. I only came across one lot of bandits 140 hours of play. It's a shame. It was a real lost opportunity here. So the way you control the game, your backpack, the management of items and people in your settlement, it does work, but it feels just a little bit clumsy. I always appreciate that UIs are not going to be perfect in a lot of games, but play testing should pick up that a system is not working as well as it should. Medieval is a slow-paced game, and if you want a game that you can just tick over on, build up a settlement and treat it like a mini city builder game, you're going to really enjoy it. It certainly has its flaws, but those flaws can be easily worked around or don't impact the overall pleasure of the game. For example, the slightly tedious main story will not stop you from expanding your settlement. You can crack on and be almost independent of it. However, if you want a single player game that feels vibrant and alive, this is not it. The wildlife is nice, the forest's beautiful, but your travels will be lonely between villages, and the NPCs that you bring around you and you interact with feel a little dead. I'm a bit split on this game, to be honest. I know I buggered the early game up, but I'm not sure that was my fault. So to a degree, I wonder if my experience was the normal one or a deviation of the norm. I enjoyed the game. In fact, I enjoyed it a fair bit, but after about 30 hours I'd had enough. But if you're really into this type of game or determined to make a metropolis, you can likely take the game to a level that I just simply did not. So, thanks for watching. And if you want to follow me for the odd review in the future that I will post up, hit that sub button and help me out with a like, as I actually genuinely think that the YouTube algorithm despises me. Anyway, I'll see you in the next chapter. Thank you very much for watching.